Quelques mille de vin.
No, what it says is mixed use maybe down below. But
I get it, I understand. The
maybe you might
defense
have
is
14, maybe the rest of it.
this is
It's not going to be enough revenue generated to fix the
but
roads.
that they could take out.
Yeah, but once you increase population and oh, I said, the person that's going to make money out of that
And
project,
I'm driven by you know, oh, I know.
they're going to say, that was certain cities for the EMC job. And they wanted to use that to
Held his hand while we were
parking lots. I said, would you have an agreement? Well, no, we'll get an agreement. I thought they named it.
Yeah, if they when you have somebody like kind of
Oh, okay.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for your patience. We wanted to give people a little bit of time to work their way into the meeting, so I wanted to wait until after 7 to start it. So thank you, everybody, for coming out. I know you could be in a warm house right now, sipping some soup or some coffee. Thank you to coming out and being here with us. So tonight is a community meeting. We wanted to solicit your input regarding an economic development strategic plan that the City of Artesia is working on. I'm the new city manager here in the City of Artesia. My name is Aldo Schindler. I've been here for a little over 3 months now, and I've really enjoyed my time here. I've worked for over 29 years in municipal government. I live right down the street in Buena Park, worked in this area for over 20 years in the cities of Long Beach, Downey, Whittier as well, and very proud that the council has selected me to be their city manager. Tonight with us, we have Tony Lima, who is our Mayor Pro Tem. He was able to come out tonight, so thank you, Tony. Also, our other council members couldn't make it because there's a lot of different wacky rules that we have to deal with in government. And one of them is called the Brown Act, and you can't have close to a majority of your council members attend a meeting that's sponsored by the city. So by no means do they not want to be here. They all actually were fighting to be here, and we're live streaming it so that they can participate as well. The first thing that I noticed when I came to Artesia is how unified our council is and how close they work together, and also how intensely motivated and interested they are in working with the community. Hence, that's why we're here tonight. They wanted to solicit your input in regards to our economic development strategy. The council heard a very similar presentation about a month ago, and once again, as they planned out this activity, they wanted to make sure they heard from our business community. So those council members are Mayor Manalo, Councilmember Ramoso, Councilmember Taj, and Councilmember Trevino. They can't be here tonight. It's not because they don't want to, it's because challenges regarding kind of the wacky laws that govern our municipalities that are put upon us by the state of California. With that, what we're going to present tonight is a draft plan. So it's nothing that's been etched in stone. It's nothing that we're going to move forward on tomorrow. It's a draft plan of an economic development strategy that we'd like to put together with your input on seeing how we can develop properties within our community. Developing properties is a challenge based on what's happening in the market economies, what's happening in the community, and how much land you actually have to build out from communities to communities. So tonight, Ken Hira with Cosmot Companies is going to give the presentation. Ken and Cosmot are experts in this field. They work with cities throughout the country, maybe even globally. I've worked with them in other cities as well. They're true subject matter experts in terms of doing an economic analysis in regards to real estate transactions. And commercial, industrial, and anything that kind of builds from the ground up. So with that, thank you for coming out. There's going to be an opportunity for questions after Ken's presentations. We have a second mic, so I'll walk around with the mic, and we want to capture all of your input tonight, because your input is going to go into the continuation of this study. So council wants to hear your input, the questions that you have, the concerns that you have, so that we can incorporate it into this study. Then council will then start to collect this data and start to consider it, so as they start to work to consider the finalization of this plan. So once again, thanks for coming out, and I'm going to pass it over to Ken.
All right, thanks so much, Aldo, and good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming out. As Aldo said, I guess you could be in the comfort of your own home. Appreciate you being involved in the community and stakeholder outreach. My name's Ken Hira, president of Cosmont Companies. Cosmont has been in business for over 36 years, working with several municipalities at any one given time, hundreds over its tenure, maybe thousands. But focused primarily in California, Western United States. We work on economic development, real estate, we do advisory work, we try to liaise between the public and private sectors oftentimes. And so what we've been charged with at the city of Artesia is to prepare what's called an economic development strategic plan. And as Aldo mentioned, about a month ago we made a presentation of the draft of what we've uncovered so far, sort of an existing conditions report, and we presented that to council, got some feedback from the city council. You might have been at that meeting because it was a public hearing. But then we're trying to incorporate council's feedback and direction on what makes sense for the city of Artesia based on our evaluation and some of our recommendations. A big part of what an economic development strategic plan is it should include community and stakeholder input. So that's what tonight's, the purpose of tonight is, and for all of you to basically provide input. At the end of this discussion, I'm going to have a series of questions that want to solicit your feedback. You know, what's unique, what's good, what's challenging about the city of Artesia, what's the business environment like. So we're going to be looking for your feedback ideally so that, as Aldo said, we can come back to the city council and you all as a community, and it can be your plan and something that can be implemented. So this mouse is supposed to work, which is connected to my laptop. I never thought it would work 100 feet away. So it may be a little sporadic, but it was working a little bit ago. So let's see if I can scroll through these slides or not. If not, I'll ask somebody to help me back here. All right, we got one slide so far. So as I said, we're working on the plan. It's really trying to put into context existing conditions, regional trends, what's happening in the marketplace with different land uses, retail, hospitality, office, residential, etc. The consumer today has really shifted their preferences, how they consume, how they commute, how they shop. We're in a bit of an uncertain economic reality given where our economy is today. So it's just important for cities like Artesia to pursue opportunities to try to spur development and the right kind of development and development that's feasible. Development or redevelopment for that matter. So our approach includes community and stakeholder outreach, as I said, which is a very important part of this process. So, I may just ask, okay. I don't want to read every bullet point on every slide. It's not the way to go through a presentation. I'm going to go through some highlights of the bullet point section of this, and then I'm going to get to some of the visuals and the graphics that help illuminate and illustrate really what's important. But I do want to say that, you know, the consumer today is using the online platform, they're looking for experience. Younger consumers are definitely in a media and digital communication circumstance, looking for experience like restaurants, entertainment venues. Teleworking, catalyzed by the pandemic, is certainly something that's new to our economy, if you will. It's the hybrid workforce. We're not commuting necessarily 2 hours every day. We may be doing that only 2 or 3 times a week for that matter. And then as a result of state legislation allowing cannabis manufacturing and retail sales, many cities like Artesia have adopted an ordinance to allow such businesses, and they can be major tax revenue generators as well. We do want to talk about what the impact of land use is and development on your revenues, on your general fund revenues, on your sustainable revenues. These are important components, we believe, to an economic development strategic plan. So Artesia adopted an ordinance in October of 22 that allows cannabis retail sales within certain zones of the city. That's one important point of feedback that we got from the council presentation back in February. Yeah, maybe I just do next slide, although instead it works sometimes. Okay, so Artesia at a glance. It's a unique city, serving the southeastern LA County area, home to a variety of businesses, a gateway community, if you will, with the 91 freeway and other regional corridors. The commercial base is ethnically diverse, attracting visitors from across Southern California. And then the city's seen little growth in commercial and multifamily over the past decade. However, one important component is also the future planned Metro West Santa Ana branch, which is going to be a transit station that's planned to come in the next, say, 10 years, give or take. That can provide what we call transit-oriented development opportunities, kind of at the little bit of the southern end of the city. So that transit line that comes can also be a catalyst to development, in addition to the major freeway corridors that you have and the major arterials that you have internally to the city. So I don't want to spend too much time on this because I want to get to the graphical components of most of this information. Let's see if I can keep going. Same here. I will go through some of this in terms of retail, office, industrial, residential, and hospitality. We did market analyses, if you will, high-level market analyses on all of those asset classes to figure out what can work in the city. One thing you'll also find is that there's visitors that come to the city, and they come as employees or they come as visitors. That distinction is that if you're an employee, you obviously work here in town. If you are a visitor, you're coming to do other things. You're coming for the experience, you're coming to shop, you're coming to the restaurants, you're coming to see family. So there's a distinction between the employee that comes into town and the visitor that comes into town. And I'll show you that graphically. 60% of the visitors that come to Artesia are local, within 7 miles, and 80% of the employees that come into Artesia are also pretty local, and that's within 7 miles. So if we could hit the next slide, because that's pretty consistent. And keep going, because I'm going to cover this in the graphical representation. Okay, two major development opportunity areas that we found with sort of a radius around them. The northern end takes advantage, Pioneer Boulevard being the north and south main thoroughfare within town, takes advantage of the 91 freeway. There's a housing authority site, there's something called Artesia Place, which is a development on the old dairy site. There's another property that's along Artesia Boulevard that could be suited for a commercial, and then there's something called Artesia One Live. On the southern end of the city, again, it's an economic node, and the West Santa Ana branch metro station is going to be something that can serve to catalyze higher density development, and a concept that I talk about a lot, which I want to share with you, called blended use. Mixed use or blended use. So what do those things mean? They're essentially synonymous, but the notion of just big retail centers is not really today's trend. So retail is starting to kind of blend with residential. And next slide, you'll see these trends in a more blended use format. Next slide, please. Before I get there, this is an important representation of the city's general fund. The pie chart on the left tells us that 33.4% of tax revenues come to the city through sales tax. 34% comes via property tax. And I also like to take a look at TOT. TOT is transit occupancy tax, which is from hotels. The city generates about 4.6% of its tax revenues from hotel tax. Now, if you look at the pie chart on the right, it's an average of all cities in California. So if you make a quick comparison, there are lower property taxes that in comparison to the rest of the cities that Artesia gains. So The rest of the state, on average, gets 43.5% from property tax. And then as to sales tax, it's 23%. And you can see that Artesia ends up having a little bit of a higher ratio of 33% versus 23% of sales tax revenue. That means it's highly reliant, more heavily reliant on sales tax revenue. And then the comparison to the rest of the state for transient occupancy tax is 3.9%. And the city of Artesia actually gets a little bit more than that average of other California cities. Next slide. Okay, so this is just a scattergram. I don't want to confuse folks with complex slides, but what this represents, simply put, every dot on this slide is a city in California. So we've taken all the cities and plotted them. And if you're to the far right, you're more heavily reliant on sales tax. If you're to the top, which is in blue, you're more heavily reliant on transient occupancy tax. The closer you are to the gray is a more balanced general fund. Right, wrong, or indifferent, you might ask, who's a dot, what city is to the far right that relies 85% of its general fund tax revenues on sales tax? Well, that could be a city like Sand City in Monterey County, where very few people live there, but it has a Costco. You would ask, why is the dot to the far top 70% relying on hotel tax? Well, that city could be Mammoth, where generally speaking, they're heavily reliant on hotels. So where Artesia falls is a little bit further to the right, which is a little more heavily reliant on sales tax revenue. So that is to say that you have exposure or you have risk, or that's the revenue source that's very, very important to your city. And so when I make presentations to every and all cities that are our clients, I generally show this so you can see where you fall within the spectrum. Next slide. This is a historic representation of your sales tax revenue. There's two things going on here. One, it says your sales tax has grown, but of course it got deflated pretty significantly in the pandemic. That means that people stopped coming into town to buy goods, generally speaking, from storefronts. Well, that makes sense. I was also making a presentation to a city Monday night, and there was a very small blip during COVID. Not much declined during a COVID circumstance. In your case, a significant amount declined, but it's come back. The second thing going on is what's called the county pool. And that's the non-direct sales tax revenue that cities benefit from. And what's meant by that is the internet sales that have now become prolific in our economy. They're generating sales tax revenue that goes into a county pool because they're on the internet, and the county distributes those sales tax revenues to cities. So if you look at the $655,000 compared to the $2.9 million in 2021, the county pool represented 22% of your sales tax revenue. That's pretty significant. And if you look at the growth of the county pool sales tax revenue, it's at 100% over a 5-year period. Most cities these days are benefiting from internet sales through the county pool. So you realize that even though your storefronts may be a little more challenged with direct sales tax revenue, the internet sales in the county pool ends up having a substantial benefit on the health of your economy, your local economy. Next slide. Demographics, high level, 16,000 folks live in the city, 3.4 average household size, median age is about 40, high level of the Hispanic population, high level of Asian and Pacific Islander population. Next slide. Unemployment. Again, tracking along, the city of Artesia had a better unemployment rate through 2018, 2019, and then of course unemployment got worse during the pandemic, no surprise. But if you can see where it's come back to, it's all the way down to about 4.9%. So I would say that there's a relatively healthy employment circumstance in the city in comparison to the rest of the county and California. Next slide. 5,300 folks come into the city to work every day, 7,500 folks leave. Now, I think this trend is changing, obviously evolving because of the hybrid work environment. So I think you're going to have a lot more daytime population. Cities, I know I've talked to anecdotally during COVID, said their sales tax revenue for local restaurants went up. Well, why? Because folks weren't driving and commuting. They were staying off the freeways, and they were frequenting local businesses during that period of time to either buy groceries or go buy lunch. So I think this trend of hybrid working is going to create a circumstance where there's just more folks working from home potentially more times during the day, and it could impact and benefit your daytime population and businesses. Next slide. This is the notion that the visitors who didn't come into the city during the pandemic came back to your city post-pandemic quickly. That's the top graph. The employees who were coming into the city to work, that graphical representation of their comeback is much slower, much flatter. In other words, less people have come into work post-pandemic than visitors have come in to visit. And the good news is about that sales tax revenue and the visitors that have come back is they're frequenting your businesses. And they're helping keep that retail economy alive. Next slide. Again, the visitors come from about 60% come from within 7 miles. The folks that come into work, 80% of them come from 7 miles. Well, that means the visitors are coming from a much broader trade area. So you have visitors coming from 10 to 30 miles. Next slide. And you'll see that, next slide, you'll see that here. This is a representation based on Placer AI. Placer AI is an artificial intelligence platform that tells us where people are going, how long they're staying, and I know it sounds a little scary, but it also tells you what your preferences are, what the demographics are of the people coming into a city or traveling from one place to the next, all through mobile data analytics. So we use that tool, which is very powerful, that shows us that on the right, the folks coming into work every day are coming from a pretty close proximity. But the folks coming to visit or shop are much more regional. And that means you have something here that's a draw. And I think it's the eclectic nature of retail, it's the diverse nature of retail, it's the ethnic nature of retail, your restaurants, and different types of retail. Next slide. Folks who want to go to big boxes and malls, they're going to Cerritos. They're going to Cerritos Promenade, or they're going to Cerritos Center, obviously. They're going to Lakewood, they're going to Long Beach Town Center. The shopping centers that get frequented that are local, much of them are driven by grocery stores. So you've got 99 Ranch, you've got Stater Brothers. They're driving a lot of your local shopping center trips because that's a big part of your anchored retail in your city, are the grocers. But the regional, retail folks, the big boxes, the Targets of the world, the malls, this gives us an indication of where they're going. It's no surprise that they're going to a couple of malls that are not far away. Next slide. So trends, I've already talked a little bit about this, but I want to repeat it. The notion of residential has in the past for many cities been something that is a little controversial. Folks aren't sure whether there's a positive fiscal impact. Is it a good thing from a tax revenue perspective or not? And we're finding that there's more positive net fiscal impact, more positive tax revenues net from residential projects than not. And what's meant by that is if you have a high tax apportionment, your property tax share is a high number or a high portion, or construction costs are high, generating a high level of property tax from residential projects, they're not always negative fiscal impacts. So it's something to say that it's a driver within your local economy. The other thing happening that as far as residential goes is there's a lot more going on underneath one roof today. We used to only sleep in our homes. And 5-10 years ago, you can call it the Amazon effect, the internet effect, whatever you want to call it, we started shopping underneath our roofs. So now there was sales tax revenue being generated through the county pool from homes. And third, the other thing we're doing is what? We're working from home. So the home is representing something that's almost an economic development driver. Retail is not just retail anymore. this notion of blending of uses. Take any mall, take any large retail center, and I would argue it needs to be reimagined. There's too much retail. Too much retail in the country, large scale, too much retail in most cities. And I'll talk more about that. But that means that retail should be blending with hospitality, retail should be blending with office when there's demand, retail should be blending with residential. Teleworking is changing the office environment. You know, cities in our country that have a significant amount of office, whether it's urban office or even suburban office, are going to be suffering tax revenues because of the vacancy that the office market is going to be facing as we all change our ways of working. And then the last economic trend is industrial. At a scale today where it's last mile delivery, or it's fulfillment, or there's some e-commerce that can take place out of industrial. Flex space is making a big difference to our economy because we also live in what I call a doorstep economy, or a delivery economy, or a curbside economy. We're getting a lot of goods in our curbside, and that has to come through last mile delivery. So that's where industrial is strengthening, obviously, as well as the distribution side of industrial. It's pretty booming. Next slide. So I'll quickly just highlight some things in the retail market. Your retail vacancy rate is 2.9%. Now, there's a lot of retail in the city of Artesia, but at 2.9%, you're at a very healthy vacancy ratio. If you were at 10%, it would be a real concern. 2.9 is a very healthy ratio. That means that your retail is occupied. You have 1,000,004 square feet. There's a lot of it, but it's occupied. That's the good news. And you can see the different ratios. I focus in on vacancy rate, but 5.4% is a higher vacancy rate within the 5-mile radius, and the larger markets at about 4%. Next slide. All these shopping centers are where folks go to shop. I want to give you a couple of metrics, though. The 977,000 square feet that represents your retail inventory in the city, when you divide that by your population of 16,200, you get 60 square feet of shopping centers per capita. That's extremely high. But when you look at a 5-mile radius, because you're attracting folks from outside, as we talked about, that ratio goes down to 35 square feet of shopping centers per capita. Our country's at 23, and it's too high. But when you have a 2.9% vacancy, and you have 60 square feet of shopping centers per capita, you're in a unique circumstance where you actually have a pretty healthy retail environment. I don't think there needs to be tons more retail built in the city of Artesia. I don't think there's land to do it. But I do think that taking a picture of where you are from an existing conditions perspective is very important. The reason the shopping center per capita ratio is so important is if you don't have a regional draw and you're just relying on your local population, it's going to be a lot more challenging, generally speaking. Next slide. Office market is not very big, but it's a 6.7% vacancy rate. That's pretty high. Office is really challenged these days. Medical office has some merit. Maybe some suburban professional office has some merit. But generally speaking, the traditional office space is facing higher vacancy, lower demand. Next slide. Multifamily is another statistic that's kind of crazy. You have 15 vacant units in your entire city. And we're in a housing shortage. So at 1.8%, again, it's an extremely low vacancy. Many cities are at that kind of vacancy rate. It's very low because we need more housing to help folks not commute from places where it's less expensive to live. Next slide. So there's RHNA, which is the Regional Housing Needs Assessment. It says the city needs to build housing pursuant to the state's requirements. But the way we look at the chart on the right is that how old is some of the retail and how old is some of the office in the city. So if you have older retail, 40 years or older, we kind of look at that as the potential of an opportunity for reimagining, redeveloping. So if you've got too much retail, if you've got retail that's struggling or being challenged because it's older and maybe facing some obsolescence, it becomes an opportunity to maybe blend some uses. So we look at the square footages of about 340,000 square feet that has a potential to be reimagined in the next 10 years, and office of about 65,000 square feet. Those are our estimates based on older commercial real estate. Next slide. So quickly, city has 1.4 million square feet, like I said, retail 2.9%. A variety of food options with restaurants driving 30% of local sales. Great regional network, 91 Freeway 605, great interior network, Artesia Boulevard South, Pioneer. The rail connectivity for the future based on West Santa Ana branch, and a strong jobs housing balance. Next slide. Challenges. There's not a lot of big box retail, and I don't think it necessarily the city suited for it. That means that you're going to have folks leaving to go to the Costco's and the Targets of the world. That's just a natural phenomenon that's going to take place. And then there's also structural changes that are affecting the e-commerce and the storefront real estate. Next slide. Opportunities. You also have some city-owned property. There's a city-owned asset known as Artesia Town Center. Again, light rail that's coming, tremendous housing demand. There's a mixed-use overlay. And then there's also the potential to create some tax increment financing districts, which is an economic development tool that might take advantage of new assessed value. Next slide. And then the opportunity areas, which I mentioned earlier, to the north, you've got 3 or 4 opportunity sites that we've been working with staff on in the city based on development, communication, and collaboration over the years. And on the southern end, our real focus is again the transit-oriented development opportunity. Next slide. So here's the point in time I can ideally stop talking and start listening. We've got a series of questions. Not all these questions need to be answered. I'm going to go through them all at once. But what we want to do is get your thought process for any or all of the questions so we can get good community and stakeholder feedback. What makes Artesia unique? I've stated some things, but I want to hear from you all. What do you like best about Artesia? What are the challenges for businesses in the city? What new developments do you see or would you like to see? What stores do you shop at that aren't available? What cities do you go to? What makes them desirable? What are important priorities that the city can focus on? Maybe it's doing an economic development strategic plan. Ideally, the city is trying to make an investment in a plan based on good data, good information, good input. And what do you want to see the city achieve in 5 to 10 years? And what's your opinion about the permit approval process and new business development? And the point on some of these questions are this meeting is supposed to have folks from the community, folks that are considered stakeholders, maybe business owners. And I might just ask before you guys start giving this feedback, by a raise of hands, who's a resident but not necessarily a business owner in the room? Okay. And then who has a business interest or a business owner or owns real estate, if you will, in the room? Okay, great. So it seems like it's a mix, which is excellent. And I don't have an exact science to how I'm gonna want you to raise your hand if you got a comment, and all those are going to be able to share a microphone with you so folks who aren't in the room can hear. And then we're going to try to take some notes and categorize some of the important feedback that we get tonight. So whoever wants to go first, if you do go first, you get a free, what are we giving away, Alden? Actually, you get coffee and donuts if you go first.
I would ask, though, if we could speak into the mic, because this is being live streamed on Facebook, so to allow folks that are watching to really hear it.
And it's a time to ask questions. Obviously, I'm available for questions. It's not just your comments or feedback.
Thank you very much. I mean, this is very instructive and informative, so I appreciate the info. One question, one comment. Would this be available to us for further thinking and stuff?
Absolutely.
Excellent.
And so, if I don't mean to interrupt you, I don't want this to be the only evening or the only opportunity for feedback. So if there's folks at home, we want to get those comments. You go home, because it's not like we always come up with the answers to all the questions in one evening. If you've got comments and questions, you can reach out.
Right. The context of my request about the presentation was I serve a non-profit organization here. Overwhelming majority of the people who we serve are limited in English proficiency. So they may not be able to give any feedback and input while they are residents here, they own properties here and so on and so forth. So we would love to make this available to them and get their feedback and share with you to enrich the conversation.
Thank you. That's perfect. Thank you for that. All right, the second person that goes also gets coffee and donuts. I mean, you're getting the picture here. Any other questions or comments or feedback? Go ahead, sir. But Aldo will get you a microphone. Thank you.
Well, I thought I live in Artesia almost 18 years. The good business we have, city have 2 property, 2, 3, and if you develop it, the hotel, motel, they get, city get a direct tax for this. A hotel, motel tax go to 12%, rider go to the city, and city get more benefit, employment, everything. So, and this area is a 605 freeway business environment, so they did more hotel, motel, 5-star hotel here.
Okay. Anybody else? Any other questions, comments?
Good evening, my name is Dinesh Pindi. My family and I run businesses and own a number of properties. To address your first question is what makes Artesia unique. I think just the diversity of businesses we have here makes it unique, and this is one of the reasons why you have the people traveling into town. What we do lack is the ability to promote those unique businesses and unique corridors that we have, which breaks down to the different clusters of communities we have, which I feel would add added value to Artesia. And I'm not singling any one community, but when you do analysis, you can quite easily see how that area could be promoted. You have businesses between 183rd and South Street, you have businesses south and of Artesia, you have different businesses. We have this establishment right here, which as far as I know is one of the only bullfighting rings in the state. These are kind of the unique things that the city has, and I don't think the outreach to promote that is being done, and that would definitely add to Artesia. Developments in the city, definitely I feel that the area of hotel motel is probably the most beneficial as it brings direct revenue to the city, which I feel is a need as a priority. Housing is obviously another area, but in making decisions on them, it should be looked at where they could be brought in without the future impact of retail, which means or hotels or businesses that need exposure and businesses that need easy access. So in the planning phase, that should be seriously considered. I feel that the city has a very nice blend of businesses. You know, definitely we like the big box, but we don't know where to go for that. So I think the city is well served with the mix of businesses. As far as improving of businesses is concerned, like I'm in the luxury business and security is always a concern. So the city's emphasis on law enforcement and security is always going to be an important factor in making sure that people feel safe to come to the city ultimately impose businesses. We are extremely committed to the city and feel that a lot of opportunities, particularly with the light rail and growth, would definitely be very beneficial. As far as permit and approval process is concerned, I know that the business license process was a little complicated. I don't know if that has been resolved. I myself have had tenants that took a significant amount of time in order to order business license, and that's an administrative issue. The permitting process, I feel that with the new city manager and the proactive approach, I'm seeing a great deal of improvement there, and obviously that's the only way you can bring development. I think the can-do approach is what brings people, and all projects should be evaluated with all different avenues before allowing or disallowing them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate all your comments.
I had another question too.
I've read and I've listened to the news that just recently, almost 1 million people have left California. I think that's a trend. People are leaving California. So I think those statistics will have to be adjusted as far as housing requirements or needs, because they are leaving. Secondly, we have many Indians or merchants or people there. I don't see any Asian, and we have a lot of pockets of Asian, and I'm not sure if we, staff has really done outreach to the Asian merchants. Because I don't see any here. I'm thinking we need to get their input and feedback as well.
Thank you.
And my question was just, obviously you guys are trying to do business development in the city. As far as the residents, a lot of times I see, when you're trying to execute some plans, they do there's some pushback. Not all the time. Some are welcoming of development and some are not. Have you guys done any, gathering any information on that?
You mean on the, like a survey of,
Yeah.
part of what we're doing tonight is really that.
Right.
Is to get
So
a
this
feel.
is also just residential.
Yeah, I mean, I think it looked like there was at least a split raise of hands of how many folks are residents versus businesses. I don't know who's online watching as well at home, which is fine. So I think a good mix is important, so we get a feel for it. So that's partly why we're doing community and stakeholder outreach.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Nicole Golightly. I'm a new business owner on Pioneer Boulevard, right at South Street, Golightly Creations. I just want to speak to the part about what is my opinion on the permit approval process. It was horrible. Horrible. Like, the worst part about starting a business was the permit process with the city of Artesia. Like, it was combative. It was horrible. Like, every time I go in there to get a permit, it's an issue. But I started the permit process in March, did not have my grand opening until October. That's ridiculous. Granted, we did have to do some construction inside the site, but literally, the city would not return my phone calls. They don't handle the permit process in-house, they handle it through somebody else, and every time I called that person, they'd be like, well, the city didn't respond yet, so we're waiting on them. I'd call the city, well, that company didn't respond yet, so we're waiting on them. In the meanwhile, I lost 10 grand because I had purchased merchandise for my store. The city said it needs to be a retail shop. I never had a plan for a retail shop. I'm an event planner coordinator. That's what I wanted. I now have a retail shop because the city of Artesia said that. So that's what I did. I spent 10 grand on merchandise that I was not able to use because the city couldn't return my phone calls. They have allocated phone call time, they have allocated email time, they have allocated desk time. And if they run out of one of those times, well, screw the business owner, excuse me. But that's how I feel. Like, I feel if retail is so important to the city, then support us small business owners. Like, literally, the only phone call that somebody actually reached out to me was because I posted my grand opening on Facebook, and somebody from the city saw it, and then proceeded to let my husband know that we didn't have a permit for a grand opening, so we couldn't have a grand opening outside. Well, tell people that. Welcome to the city. I'm sure you're gonna have a grand opening. Here's the process. I'm sure you wanna put a banner up in front of your shop. Here's the process. I went to purchase the banner permit and then was talked out of it by a city employee. Like, I'm trying to do the right thing, but the city's not clear. The city's not supportive. The process is horrendous. Like, we're a city this big. Like, why are we not handling that in-house? Why are we not, like, hands-on with our business owners about the permit process? That makes no sense to me. And then to touch on the point about safety, I don't feel safe. I do not feel safe. Like, my business backs up into an alley, and every single week, something else is new. There's graffiti. This morning, there was a gallon of milk busted all over the driveway. People are pissing, literally, in the alley daily. There are people that hang out back there. There's shopping carts. Right now, there's a stove behind my shop. Like, how do I bring business? I have clients all over, Orange County, LA, Irvine, all over, and I'm bringing my clients into my shop. There's a damn stove behind my shop. Like, it looks ghetto. I didn't know. Like, I am very familiar with Little India. Like, we eat there, we love it, we support all our local businesses. I had no idea how ghetto it really was. I just want, like, some support as a business owner. I love Artesia. Artesia's great. We got so much potential, but support your small business owners. Like, come in. I've only had one city council member come in my business since October. One. Why? How is that possible? How are we so small that we're not making that contact? We're not making that effort. You need a permit? Let me handle that. Oh, you didn't get the grand opening permit? Well, this is what we can do to support you, because we're gonna help you. No, that's not what I got. You know, maybe I'm the minority in that situation, but the permit process should be streamlined. It should be easy. It should be concise. Like, I've literally had to go print papers and come back and was told we cannot waste city resources on you to print papers for you for your permit process. Like, come on, you guys. Like, have some compassion. Let's support our local businesses. Like, it's hard being a local business owner. But the one person that's supposed to give me, like, support has been the one that's giving me grief, you know? Like, I dread going into City Hall. I literally, like, I'll beg somebody to come with me, please, because it's gonna be a problem. I've been lied to in there. I've been disrespected. I've had somebody, like, tell me that I'm the problem. Sir, I'm just trying to get my permit to run my business so I can get my money back, you know, so I can support my family, so I want to be successful. I want to be hugely successful in the city of Artesia. I don't want to be robbed. I don't want to be mugged. Like, somebody stole my doorbell. Like, somebody's thrown, like, vomit all over my front of my store. Somebody's stole my signs. I've literally, like, 2 cameras this week just because I'm like, what is going on? I have to keep my door locked. Like, it's not fair. It's not right. When do we see police officers? When do we see city council members? When do I see public safety? I have to get a permit. I had to get a permit to sell stuff for Valentine's Day. It cost me $427 to put a tent and a table in front of my own shop. The shop next to me did not get a permit. Still put up the table, still put up the tent, still made their money. And here comes the, what do they call it? Code enforcement came, talked to them, wrote off, bye-bye. Still got to keep their tent up for another day. Still got to make their money, but I'm out $427 because I did the right thing. This city's not fair. Be fair. What's the point of code enforcement? Like, this lady was selling alcohol out of her tent. Like, come on. But I can't sell flowers out of my own shop. You know, it's just not fair. So I think support, I think streamline the permit process. I absolutely think bring it in-house. And I think step up for us. Show up for us. Like, protect us. Keep us safe, you know?
Thank you very much for your comments.
I would love to say, in hope of getting another muffin, basically.
I didn't know if you were still counting on the muffins.
Yeah, I was going to hold this comment, but you inspired me to share this. As I mentioned, that my name is Shakil Sayyed, and I work for a nonprofit of South Asian Network. And we did a survey of small businesses like yours over the course of 3 months between October and December of 22, about 58 small businesses, just to get an idea as to what difficulties and challenges that they are going through, how the pandemic impact them, what support and services available from the city, how we as a nonprofit can support and help them, and so on and so forth. And those issues resonates with me. And I have the data, and we'll be happy to share the data with you. I just told Aldo actually to share the entire data with you. But my question now is, you mentioned $290 million sales in the city, and vast majority are from visitors. If we go into the micro data of that, would you be able to share with us what are those sales, and what types of businesses are they patronizing? So I think I have an idea, but I would love to see if it's supported by any micro data that you have access to. Thank you.
I can look into that.
Awesome, thank you.
Hi, my name is Sam Desai. I'm a tax person. I have a goal of doing about 10% of population of Artesia's taxes. And this year, we have been working with low income, as well as senior citizens of Artesia, as well as business owners who are suffering or having different challenges, including getting different type of grants. Where I'm coming from is, if city of Artesia can be a little bit, not a little bit, should be totally user-friendly when it comes to this information being sent out to the residents as well as businesses. That would be amazing. I understand the challenges we face as a small business owner, and again, my customers are mainly residents and small business owners, right? We want this transparency happen. Now, as far as I see a couple of comments, what new developments we want, what shops which are not available in the city, I would urge highly for the city to pay attention to the businesses which are already set up. I understand the new hotels and all this will bring in the revenues, but our small businesses which are here, I mean, I work with Chamber of Commerce, I go to grand opening, and I do see that sometimes there is a communication between city employees where city council may not know what's going on in the city. So if we can take a closer look at what's going on and keep everyone who is not for profit people who want to invest, and specifically these residents, that you're getting all these different benefits. So that would be amazing. Let's make Artesia totally user-friendly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there, good evening everyone. Ben Samba with the Local Workforce Development Board. And there's a couple of questions, actually there's a lot of great questions up there, but I'm going to kind of combine two of them. What would you like to see achieved the next 5 to 10 years, and what new developments would you like to see in Artesia? Well, let me ask you this question. With the potential extension of the Metro line, what's going to make people skip their exit and come closer to Artesia? What's going to make them come off? What's going to make them want to move here? Obviously, you want to expand outward, but that's not possible because land, as we know in LA County, is very limited to none. So we're obviously going to have to build up, make more bang for our buck in regards to land usage. So in regards to getting more diversity in regards to the city of Artesia, these, Brian, I mentioned at the city council, the ecosystems tend to be something that local cities are really getting behind to. You talked about earlier, you work, you shop now at your house. Well, why not go to the gym while you're at your house as well? There's a nice little courtyard, kind of like the city of Norwalk, just that new garden walk that they're going to be building, kind of similar to that. What's going to make the average consumer come to Artesia? Yes, you have your localized shops here very well, but how do you expand enough to get a different demographics to Artesia? And last but not least, the achieved 5 to 10 years. Working with small businesses, I can tell you small businesses matter, so definitely strengthening the relationship with local businesses. You kind of heard it here tonight, so it only help both building on what you already have, And at the same time, what's gonna bring the individual that left your city or went to Long Beach instead, come here to Artesia, spend the money here, spend the night here. That's where the city should really focus on, how to capture the consumer instead of going to all these, just in the Southeast LA region, is about over 500,000 constituents. Think about that. It's a lot of local businesses competing, and especially with the new diaspora of business potentially closing. There was a new forecast that just came out. 26% of small businesses close in the next 5 years in LA County. How is the city preparing for that? So small business, I understand where you're coming from, so that's another thing. Strengthen the next 5, 10 years to small businesses. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to attend here tonight. I represent a local ready-mix concrete supplier in Artesia. The facility we operate in has been in and around Artesia for since early 1950s, late 1940s, and I was pleasantly surprised to see the 33% sales use tax, and I understand that we would be a large contributor to that. And when I look up there as far as what are the main challenges that are facing businesses in Artesia, I would say that we have a deep concern over rezoning and the potential of what may be our new neighbors that used to be the California Dairy. It's no secret that our industry, as growth and development takes over, often businesses like ours are ultimately pushed out of communities. And I think when you look at the great relationship that our businesses had with Artesia over the years, that it's beneficial for both of us to look at how we can make that happen and continue and thrive into the future. So I guess in terms of what would be the challenge for us, would be to remain in Artesia and thrive. And we certainly look for help and support in making that happen.
Thank you. Okay, well, that's your third. You're on your third muffin. Second cup of coffee. Nobody's eating them, so I think you can have them.
Margaret Sato here. With regard to marketing Artesia, I have gone to the city council, and last time, the most recent one, was regarding, there was an article in the LA Times, it was on the front page, it was about Little India, and they were questioning our downtown area. And I went to the city council. I suggested that, this is not the first time, I have gone several times, to ask them to go to someplace like UCLA. They have an Asian American Studies group, and they would love to do a marketing study of Artesia, because we are uniquely situated with a number of Asian Americans. You know, generally you get social economic, but not business. And I think that this community has challenges. I think we should go to someone like UCLA Asian American Studies, ask them, will you help us? Help us market Artesia. You know, because we have unique challenges because of our population. And like the gentleman said, you know, the small businesses need help. You know, so I have suggested that. I don't think that the city council has acted, and this is not the first time I've suggested this. I've suggested it several times. And with regard to the lady who is complaining about her business and all the trash and the vandalism, look at the number of times that the Public Safety Committee has met. They are one of the least committees that's meeting. They should be meeting every single month. Merchants, residents should be taking it to the Public Safety Committee. You know, and if the city council isn't willing to, you know, to listen to them, you know, we need to bring this up to the city council. Because, you know, this is, from the sounds of it, it's a homeless problem, you know. And so we need to address this. Because right now, if you hear it, you know, it's like we really don't have a problem. Yet I see increasingly more homeless people on our streets, you know, and if they're doing this kind of damage, you know, there are people that in other cities just wait, you know, there's homeless people that really, they have a lot of mental health issues, and they're walking around, and unfortunately, they're hurting other people, okay? So we need to deal with this before our residents are harmed. We want to clean up the area, so we need to reactivate the Public Safety Committee, okay? Another thing too, our strength. Look at California, we're very health conscious. You know, if you look around here, we're very interested in being healthy. We could have vegetarian, plant-based, you know, restaurants. Look at the Fountain Plaza, how busy it is. You know, they're constantly busy. I think if we had like vegetarian or vegan, we could have bakeries, I don't know what other kind of stores, but there are probably other kind of vendors we could bring to the community that would enhance it, you know? Because there must be like something like a vegetarian, like 85 degrees cafe and bakery. There must be something like that, you know? And I think that we should go with our strength, you know? And I'd like to see, you know, more emphasis on the retail, because we can't just build our way, because you know that the railway, it's not going to help us with these safety ambassadors. We have to put the sheriffs on the metro, because crime is up. We have homeless that are defecating, urinating, and they're attacking people. Okay, people I know that used to ride the metro, used to ride the buses to work, they don't dare, okay? Because they don't want to deal with it. They'd rather go by car, even though it costs more for gas, you know, so we as a city need to advocate for the Sheriff's Department to get back on the Metrolink, okay, before it comes here. Because if we have them, all they're going to do is they're going to have homeless people that are going to go back and forth. They're going to get an air-conditioned ride, okay? Because if we want people to ride it and to come here to shop, it's got to be safe, okay? And that goes too with our neighborhoods. We have to advocate in terms of our local, not just our city, but in the state and the county, that we need a presence in terms of law enforcement. And if someone commits a crime, we want them to go to jail, you know. Okay, because right now you look with 45, 47, what is 47, 57 AB 109, you have stores closing in San Francisco like Target, Walgreens. They're closing because they will go and they'll take bags of merchandise out of the store. And these stores can't exist because it's not a felony to steal. They have to steal over $950. So we need changes in the law to put these people away. You know, get them off the streets. They are closing prisons. They are closing prisons right now. They're emptying the prisons. Then they're going to say, oh, we have nowhere to put them because we closed all the prisons, you know. So I think we need, this is like an all-encompassing thing in terms of Artesia. But we need to help our local merchants market, you know, because they don't know, but we can use technology to help them. And we have language barriers because we have such a diverse community. We need people in City Hall that speak these languages, okay? I think we have Spanish, I don't know about the rest of them. But like for building in the permits, we should have all the merchants, we should have native speakers on the other side of the counter. Okay. So that's it right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is the second time I've heard the presentation. You do have to hear it more than once. I think it helps. It's still not really clear or communicated to me that the housing needs are as much as the report indicates. I know there's the push from the state, but I don't really see that. And then again, it's my second time hearing this presentation. Again, trying to still understand property taxes. The value of our homes doesn't as much correlate to increased revenue for the city. That's what we've been told. So when you made the observation that increased property values helps our revenue, again, maybe I missed it, but I don't see it. I know we need housing, and I appreciate some of the suggestions that are being brought up. Some of the developments on Artesia Boulevard seem to be a good compromise. So not all residents are resistant. We just want to know there's a plan, and that, we're not bringing a lot of residents without some additional revenue to support those additional city services. I think marketing was brought up in Artesia could be better. I know we've got Restaurant Week coming on. Artesia has so much diverse businesses, restaurants, everything, and I don't think everybody even knows. So I heard Restaurant Week's coming up, but my husband, we have small business, not a business per se, but we have some rental properties, and we need to find, tile, or we need to find vendors. It's not real communicated. So that's to the city. That's not your economic plan. That's just some feedback. It'd be great if we knew what Artesia had to offer. Again, I'm a resident, but I think it's relevant for business as well. Crime and safety is always a concern. I want to know I'm safe in my home, and I want to know if I'm going to go shopping, I'm going to be safe. So your points are well taken. So again, thank you for doing this. And yeah, keep talking to the residents, because they're going to complain if they don't like what they're hearing, or there's no plan.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Jason. I'm a resident of Artesia. A couple of points. First, I think from a importance piece of property that's important, I think the fact that the city owns the Artesia Town Center, I think that should be prioritized as a catalyst for future development, because that's something that's a bird in hand. And if we really want to be a catalyst for more development, why not guide that process? Why not work with architects, work with developers, have the city give the vision of what we want the future to be, not have developers tell us, which is, I think from a resident perspective, has kind of been the case over the last couple of projects that were approved. Which leads into my second case. I think the overlay zoning is a little bit aggressive with height. I think if you ask almost every resident in here, nobody wants 7 stories in Artesia. However, when you see projects like City Ventures and the projects on Artesia, I think that blends more with what we'd like to see. And I know in the past, people have said, oh, the reason it's 7 stories is it doesn't pencil. That doesn't make any sense, because if you drive down to Bellflower, they're building all kinds of 3-4 story units, and they make it pencil somehow. So I just think that overlay zone was, whoever dreamt up the 7 stories, that needs to get axed out of any type of plan. And you'd have a lot more support for projects. And then lastly, I think it's great that we're talking about economic development, but I think Artesia has such a dilapidated infrastructure that any type of plan that talks about the future needs to address how are we going to replace streets, how are we going to replace curbs. Artesia does not have a capital improvement program like any other city in Southern California, and I think that needs to be implemented alongside this, so that we have confidence that things are going to get fixed and alleys are fixed and we have better lighting and stuff like that. So those are my 3 cents.
Thank you.
He just said everything. Hi, I'm Cindy. I've been living in Artesia since I was 15 years old. I love Artesia. I've been here for a very long time. I agree that's what he said. He just said everything what I was going to say. And thank you for that. But also too, I have a big complaint about the cannabis being open here in Artesia, because we're so diverse. Not only that, I was told from, I think his name was Mr. Rocha, that it was going to be towards the north of Artesia, 3 blocks away from an elementary school. To me, that's not okay. I don't think none of the residents are being aware about this, it should be told to every resident from the north, all the way from the back, all the way from the Nemes Elementary School, all the way from everyone here in the residence. I have a 9-year-old child. I want his mindset to still be innocent. And not only that, as she said too, there's a lot of homeless. Public safety is an issue. There's none. We do need a subdivision that needs to be invested to have sheriffs in our own city, and that's what we don't. That's what we lack. We have to wait 20 minutes until we call the police to get to our house to see who's trying to break into our house or our garage, who's jumping over a wall. That takes a very long time. So maybe points like that need to be actually viewed for a subdivision for our own sheriff's department to be here in the city of Artesia. And I don't see no talk of that. I only see 6 deputies that are driving around in Artesia, and that's it. So you want to make a big development, first safety is first, as the lady said there, and I don't think that's even being talked about. So I think a survey needs to be in place to all the residents in the city of Artesia, because I bet you 100% nobody knows even about the plans or the structure or even this meeting, even though it's communitized in Instagram or Facebook, but a lot of people don't go on Facebook, a lot of people don't go on Instagram, only the people that are really invested in this. So it does need to be more communication out there for our residents and for small businesses and everybody else that's concerned. But for me, for the cannabis to be located there, that's not okay with me.
Thank you.
Carl Fonseca, a resident. Yeah, I enjoyed hearing the many viewpoints heard tonight. One of the gentlemen was talking about the businesses as far as needing promoting. I agree with that. But in order to promote, to bring visitors, we agree that the visitor base is very important to Artesia. Jason brought up infrastructure. That, in my opinion, is Pioneer Boulevard. That redo seems to not have worked out very well. On a normal day, I see the cars backed up for, I don't want to say a mile, but I understand there's some plans to redo part of Artesia, Pioneer Boulevard, but the downtown sector still reduced to 1 lane. That brings the parking situation. People don't want to come to Artesia if they're going to get a parking ticket. I was speaking with someone downtown. So some of the people, they don't understand English. They have a problem just knowing they have to get a parking permit, and they end up with a parking fine. So the infrastructure and the appearance of the city in general, the landscaping, the graffiti, the streets, we have potholes. I mean, we're a small city, 1.7 square miles. We should be able to take care of our infrastructure a little better. That brings us to revenue. Of course, we need revenue to do that. Now, I saw that pie chart up there. 2 things I didn't see on the Artesia pie chart. One was property transfer tax. The other was a utilities tax. So Artesia needs to do everything it can. The city, I hear from the council members all the time, we need more revenue. Well, there's some other, cannabis is of course important, but there's other things at play that can be done to bring in more revenue until these developments come into play. But as far as development, Artesia has to develop in order to survive. I don't care if it's goes up 3 stories, 5 stories, 7 stories. Without development, this city, there's no future for it. The other thing is, as far as the light rail, I would like the state to be more specific as to what the light rail will do for Artesia, as far as what your vision is of what you envision for the city in that regard. Thank you.
and cream cheese. All right, well, so I tell you what, I think we'll make this the last.
Yeah, probably
this the last comment.
Yes. So one
Otherwise,
follow-up
you'll
on the
keep going.
question that I asked
Yep,
before, the 290 million sales. What's that of the total percentage of sales of the city? If you happen to know that.
Right, I don't have it off.
Offhand, okay. And on the opportunity side, would you agree that the Olympics that are going to happen in Los Angeles in 2028 is an opportunity for city of Artesia to ride on?
I don't have big
Well, go ahead, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and thank you for the demonstration and the graphs. It's all great. I'm a resident here in Artesia, and our big concern, me as a resident, is curbside businesses. We do have to increase. We do have to increase the draw of the general public to come into the city. But one of my big concerns is whenever a business opens up, we have a parking problem from day one. It's been addressed years ago in the downtown area, putting up parking meters so we can at least get some revenues. But indeed, the parking facility that they have right now is very inaccurate. And then they're talking about putting hotels and or 7-story buildings. And from what I have heard, every time I spoke to anyone about those buildings, the on-facility parking is waived, and they put so many parking spaces out on the street, which the street is already full because this city is not very big, and the amount of cars that a 7-story building takes is inadequate for on-site parking. Over by McDonald's, when they were going to put that building up, I heard it could not get okayed at 7 stories unless they would waiver on-site parking. And everyone knows that area, there is no on-street parking there at all. So then they would take up the shopping centers and other locations that have a parking lot and utilize that, and that's not okay. And the last thing is the infrastructure. The electrical, the sewer, the water, everything else. When you start putting buildings like that up, we already don't have enough nationally, water-wise, to, operate. But anyway, that's my big concern about being a resident here in town, because every time they put something in, the residents get consequences of people parking on their curbs and parking everywhere away from the meters, and the proximity of the businesses to the residential homes is very close. So that's my concern, and thank you very much for everything.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, I'm out of ink in my pen. This has been great. Yeah. This has been great. Councilman, do you want to say something? Okay, please, please.
If no one else has something.
Yeah, no, I mean, this feedback has been incredible, so.
Well, I want to thank everyone for coming, and I'm very happy to hear all the matters that bothers the residents in terms of public safety, in terms of parking. I'm sure you know that Artesia is the oldest city in this area, and downtown, many of those businesses have no parking at all. So parking is a difficulty, and it's not going to get better unless we make a parking structure. And we hope that the parking structure will come as the train station comes to Artesia, as the train station is a terminus station that will serve many other cities around here, such as Hawaiian Garden, Buena Park, and other cities in Orange County, because the train station ends here on Pioneer Boulevard, and it should be many structures around the station, such as parking and business, hotels, and regular stores and restaurants, etc. So that would help a lot. And I am sad to hear the experience that the lady on the back had with the permits. We've been trying to resolve the permit problem, and I hope that we'll address that in the future, and your experience will not be experimented by other people. So in all, I want to thank everyone for being here tonight, and that will certainly help me and my colleagues to act in City Council when we have a decision to make. Thank you so much for your presence.
Well, again, thank you so much for the robust conversation, all the feedback, all the input. This is exactly what we're hoping for in order for to get in-depth feedback from you all. So thank you for your time, thank you for your comments.